Welcome to the shooting show. This week Byron's back on the island of Skye with Scott Mackenzie chasing red stags, plus Wes Stanton reviews the Browning 725. It's a wet and windy day on the Isle of Skye, but that's not going to put off Scott Mackenzie. He's out checking zero on a rifle Byron has brought for the occasion. It's the new synthetic version of the Merkel RX Helix, topped off nicely with a Swarovski Z4.
And that's shooting about 1.5 inches high.
So 1.5 inches, that'll be about right for the 308.
So if I go back 1/2 inch, that's it really. So one click.
1 to 2 clicks.
Should I try it at that, right?
You just do it more 1 click?
I've just done 1 click, aye,
Okay.
so give it a go.
Despite the conditions, Scott soon has the combo tuned and ready for the hill.
That's better. Those last two are grouped pretty well.
We'll be heading out onto Island Larman Estate with Scott as he undertakes part of his stag cull. First, making use of an Argo to aid the extraction to come, Scott gathers his kit to head on the hill, taking his 6-wheel ride to a drop-off point on the moor.
Aye, well that hillside in front of us there is where this group of stags resides, but we'll just keep creeping up in the Argo, spying, creeping up, see if we can pick them out. The weather's quite abysmal, so they'll be tucked away.
If we do pick them up, then we can, we'll make a stalk into them. We'll pick a route. But until then, we've just got to find them. And in this weather with the hill mist as well, it's just going to be just a wee bit more difficult. But we'll give it a go.
Carefully stalking the ground, Scott spies the land, knowing that around any corner the deer he is targeting could be lying up. The wet weather isn't helping matters, but eventually he spots some reds.
A few stags there, that could be our group. I will just move a bit further down and just to have a look, see if that's the group I'm looking for. Just see what they are, how many there is, and see if there's an accessible point into them, because they're on a large piece of dead ground, so it'll be a bit of a challenge, but we need to see what they are first and how many there are.
The stalking begins, but the terrain adds another difficulty as there's no easy route that won't get us spotted by a wary stag.
The group of stags that we're looking for are just down in the basin there. I'd say they're about 400 yards away at the moment. So what we need to do is just sort of double back slightly on ourselves to get ourselves a wee bit closer, and then we can just have a look at them from there. Get spied by him. We can't go to our right hand side because now the deer have moved down a wee bit and they can see us. We've got no cover from that direction we wanted to take, so we're left with one option really. We'll just try and make a direct stalk in from where we initially spotted them. We'll just try our best just to get in without being seen. They're feeding away at the moment, so we've got a bit of a surprise on them, so we'll try and get in as close as we can. If we get spooked, we get spooked. It's just one of those things.
It's lucky Scott brought some quality gear. This is not a good day to be out on the hill.
There's a few young animals on the outskirts, but it's going to be a sitting and waiting game, I'm afraid, because we're not going to be able to get any closer. Wait for them to come past us.
Scott resorts to crawling to get him a few yards closer, but the weather closes in further and eventually we have to declare a washout and head for home.
We got into this glen and for a while, because we couldn't get any closer, it makes you just sit back and watch them. And there were a few that I was hoping to take out, but that weather front came in and that really did end the game. And it got to the point where it didn't matter how hard you looked through your binoculars there, you just couldn't really pick out what you were trying to look for on the hill. So we really had to call it a do from there.
Day 2 and we're greeted by blue skies. Scott loads up and heads out once again in the Argo.
Slightly different day today, Scott, and we've immediately got ourselves a challenge on our hands.
Aye, well, the weather has just turned, sun's out, wee bit of blue skies give us a window, but now the next challenge we face is we've just found the beasts, but they've decided to put themselves right up on the higher ground to where we were yesterday morning, which gives them an almost unbroken view across this hillside here. So it's going to be a matter of just creeping in and trying to get to a good vantage point and a good area to stalk without being seen, but we're some distance off still, so fingers crossed we should get into them.
There's optimism in the air as we strike out onto the hill once more. We'll be stalking to the same area we were in yesterday, but taking a different angle of approach to avoid being spotted.
Keep close to the wood's edge. Let's just get him up to the gateway there. That'll just give us a better opportunity.
We may know where our quarry is, but it's slow going nonetheless. The deer's elevated position means there is almost no dead ground between us and them. Scott approaches methodically, stalking and spying, but they soon realise something is up and begin to move off.
I always think when they spot you at distance, it's usually because of any shadows you're casting out. If you can imagine you're twice the size from where they're looking, you've just amplified your body mass.
That's not you asking for rain, is it, Scott?
Yes.
The stalk is still on. Scott keeps up with the deer and selects a suitable stag from the group.
He's come right towards us, about 200 yards off. I can't see the other beasts, but he's just above us, so we won't miss the opportunity. Well, he's one of the younger age classes that we need to thin a few out.
This stag is a perfect shooter. Our current location doesn't provide a safe shot, so Scott stalks on, leaving Byron behind to film from a different location. It's a slow, steady crawl, all the while watching the stag's movements, but eventually Scott finds a clear shot.
Very happy with that shot. Very, very happy. It's been real difficult. We spied a big herd of stags, and we've made the stalk into them, but the last few hundred metres is a vast piece of dead ground, which it affords you very little in the way of cover. So we tried it, and we just got busted at the very last minute. So luckily, the group that we spotted yesterday has been down in the basin here, and the gods have been with us today. One of the stags that I wanted to take out has broken away from the group and just made his way towards us, which just gifted us that opportunity. And I'm very pleased with that shot. Nice 150 metre shot, and he went down. There was no getting up from that, so very pleased.
Now it's time for Scott to inspect the beast, first checking for signs of life.
I spotted them out here. There was two of them, and you can see the couch marks where they were. As we've come all the way round in the back here, we could only just see that light coloured animal and two off on the hill beyond. So I'm thinking just that from our vantage point we couldn't see the other beast. This particular area, as you can see, it's a big basin, and I like to put themselves on the sides, which means you've got to cross a dead piece of ground at some point to be able to get near to them, and you do have to take a bit of a chance and just go for it. We did it and we got away with it. It was a long belly slide down through the heather, a bit of crawling through water, but we managed to get into a position that just gave us a bit more cover. We managed to get on a wee rise there and pick that beast out, and he was a nice one to take out, nice age class. We need to thin a few of those ones out. I was really surprised that he dropped on his feet there. 9 times out of 10 they'll just do a death charge and it's 20 yards and they're down. But no, it was a good place shot and knocked him off his feet.
What is it that you're looking at when you're deciding what ones you're going to be shooting yourself as part of your management call?
First and foremost, what I'm looking for when I'm checking the deer is I'm looking for perhaps injured, sick, older animals. These are the ones that have got to be weeded out first. If you're not finding animals like that, then I start to thin the age classes out. And that's no sort of preference for bigger animals to be kept. You know, I like to keep a good age class between the stags and the hinds. It's just a nice even group. It seems to benefit them really well doing it like that. It's a 23,000 acre estate, but as it's part of Skye, we don't have the vast open spaces like the mainland does. We do have a deeper population of people and crofting townships. So again, we know what densities we need in the different areas where deer are concerned. So that's something we have to bear in mind. We can't just allow deer to come on in big numbers, because that real conflict will start then.
Scott and Byron there doing the business. And now, the Shooting Show News.
This is the Shooting Show News. Shotgun and firearm licence fees won't rise this autumn, the Home Office has said. The Association of Chief Police Officers had recommended that fees rise to £94, but this has now been delayed to allow further work on costs and the role of medical advice in the licensing process. Basque and the Countryside Alliance both welcomed the decision. Basque Chief Executive Richard Ali said he recognised that an increase in firearms licensing fees was due, but any rise should be linked to better police efficiency and effectiveness in delivering the licensing service. A police force has come in for widespread criticism after demanding that firearm and shotgun certificate applicants provide and pay for a medical report from their GP. Durham Constabulary has made the move, which goes beyond legal requirements and Home Office guidance. Basque's Director of Firearms, Bill Harriman, said the requirements offer no benefits to either applicants or to public safety, and said it would not help to reform the constabulary's record or performance. More licensing news in the next issue of Sporting Rifle. The shooting show was in attendance at the Midland Game Fair at Weston Park. There may have been rain, but the crowds were in good attendance, with a huge array of trade stands and attractions to keep their mind off the weather. We toured the aisles to see how everybody found the show, which is now 30 years old.
Really good, really well. We've had a great weekend.
Yeah, we've done exceedingly well.
We also visited the clay line.
Yeah, a little bit happy at the moment. Yeah. It hasn't really sunk in yet. Yeah, nice, feel good. I shot, just didn't want to miss anything all the way through. And then obviously the last two pegs, you see what you need to do. There's no point being heroic if you only need a 4. There was enough harder targets to sort out the men for the boys, if you like.
The future of firearms law is like a marriage, ACPO Chief Executive Andy Marsh told the first ever firearms conference on Thursday. Heading an agenda packed with hot button topics, Mr Marsh told the assembled organisation heads and journalists that communication and compromise between shooters and the police would be key to successful licensing in future. He expressed disappointment that the rise in licence fees had been kicked down the street another 6 months, as it left a £25 million gap in his budget for next year, but also referred to working with the College of Policing to apply universal licensing standards across England and Wales and improve firearms officer training. The NGO's firearms advisor later said there were still many issues to be resolved, but help from the top was essential and expressed unstinting support in ACPO. And finally, grey partridges need more time. That's the message from the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust. It has advised shooters not to shoot greys unless they have more than 20 birds per 250 acres, to allow the birds to recover from the population drops experienced in 2012. The GWCT said everyone who refrained from shooting grey partridge to allow populations to grow should be congratulated, and overwinter survival rates had increased as a result. More in the next issue of Modern Gamekeeping. That was the Shooting Show News.
Hello, I'm Wes Stanton. I'm editor of Clay Shooting magazine, and this lovely afternoon at Edgehill Shooting Ground in Warwickshire, I am reviewing the Browning B725 Grade 5. Now this gun is very clearly based on the iconic B25 that was brought into production in 1926, not long after the owner of Browning and the inventor, John Moses Browning, died in the Hursthall factory. Over the years, the Browning B25 has evolved into the B325, well, originally the 125 in the 70s, then the 325, the 425, the 525, and this latest iteration, launched last year, 2012, the 725. This is the upgraded version, the Grade 5, which has just come out for the 2013 season. Now, as I mentioned before, it very clearly is based on the B25 chassis, but on closer inspection, there are a few key details of it that are very different from any other Brownings, and in fact, not one of the components, with the exception of the ejectors, are interchangeable with any of its predecessors. Now, one of the key differences with this gun compared to its predecessor is its action profile. It's actually slightly shallower than the 525, only by 4mm, but what that does do is take some weight away from the action and gives it an increased liveliness in the hands. If you compare it to a boss style action like a Perazzi, it won't have the handleability of that, but as Brownings go, it feels really lively and pointable within the hands without being too frisky. Now, the way that reduction in height has been achieved is by making a number of changes to the action. If I take this apart, the action there is the same old Browning action at first glance that you've always seen. It has the full width hinge pin, has the bottom locking lugs on the barrels, and it looks very similar, but it's all been slimmed down, which means there's less weight in the action, and means that Browning have been able to make some vital savings in that action height. The next difference on this gun is the trigger. This is a mechanical trigger as opposed to an inertia operated one like on its predecessors, and it has shorter lock times, so you have a crisp association with the target from when you pull the trigger to when you see it break. Now, the barrels on this are particularly nicely blued and well struck. They have a raised ventilated rib and a ventilated middle rib, which helps dissipate heat when you're in the midst of competition. And they have the DS choking system built into the end of the gun. Looks very much like the old Invector system that they used to have, but these are longer extended tubes and have a brass seal just above the mating joint. Now, what this brass seal does, it's called a DS, a double seal. What that does is ensure the choke sits in tightly just above the thread, and that covers over the point where the choke meets the barrel wall. And what that does is ensure there's no gaskets behind the choke, and that ensures the barrel stays clean in use. And what I have noticed is when I've just pulled this choke out earlier, I've been shooting all afternoon with this, there's hardly any dirt on that whatsoever. So it means that you need minimum amount of work to keep the choke and the thread at the end of the barrel clean. You can tell it's a high quality gun simply by looking at the gorgeous piece of walnut that they put on the stock and on the forend. The forend, unusually, is quite distinctive. It's neither a schnabel nor a beaver tail, it's somewhere in between. It's a relatively new design. I've not seen it on a on a Browning before, but it actually feels really nice within the hand. The other key things you can spot to this being a high grade Browning is the deep hand finished engraving that adorns the action and the top lever. It's very nice. It has teardrops on the stock, very fine tight checkering around the palm swell and the other side of the stock, and it has a silver oval in the stock, so if you want to put your initials in it, you can. On the subject of the stock, this Browning comes with the Inflex recoil pad. It feels particularly gooey, in fact I'd call it squidgy, and when you're shooting with it in the shoulder, it's a welcome relief from that hard piece of Bakelite you used to get in the olden days with Browning and Maruku shotguns. Now, with the plethora of competition guns that adorn the clay shooting scene nowadays, it's easy to forget the Browning. It's perhaps easy to forget that Browning sits number 2 in the market despite a myriad competitors fighting for that space. And there's a very good reason for that. Brownings are reliable, they're robust, and they last for decades. Now, this is the grade 5, so it's pretty much top of the range for the sporter at £4,071 is the list price. You can maybe do a deal with your dealer, but that's kind of the money you're going to pay. If you're on a budget and you want this kind of quality when it comes to the feel of the gun and how it handles, there's also the grade 1. I don't have a grade 1 here today, but the grade 1 is about half the price of one of these. So if you're looking for a gun that you can win world championships with, then I would quite happily recommend the grade 1 or the grade 5, depending on your budget.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. We're out every Monday, 7:30 PM UK time. This is The Shooting Show.